The elements of literary analysis. This is a copy of the short story analysis chart that you will use in class when analyzing short stories. I'll go through it rather quickly, showing you the different options you have for each analysis category. Okay, first, let's start with characters. Protagonist is the main character, the hero, or the character that is the most important in your story. The antagonist is the character that goes against the main character. He's usually the character that creates the conflict. Remember that the antagonist does not always have to be a human. It could be an element of nature, for example. The confidant will be the character to which the main character reveals feelings, hopes, emotions throughout the story. And all the remaining characters, the secondary characters, are the ones who simply support the main character and the other characters without playing a major role inside the story. Characters can be of two types, flat and round. Flat characters will not change in the course of the story, as opposed to round characters who will change personality and also perhaps come to a new awareness of life. Characters' personalities are revealed in two different ways. These are called the methods of characterization. The first one, expository method, is where you will learn about the characters in the story through what the narrator says about them and also through what other characters present in the story say. Then dramatic method is the way you will learn about the character through his actions and behavior. The narrator's point of view was discussed in a previous video on literary elements, so I'm not going to go over them again. But remember the 3 points of view: omniscient, first person, and third person. The plot structure includes 5 terms that I will explain now. Exposition is the beginning of the story where characters are presented, and usually you have a quite normal situation. The rising action is where the problem occurs. There you'll find the main character and other characters trying to solve the problem and trying to get back to a normal situation. Rising action leads to the climax, and some people will say that the climax is the most important point in the story, and I agree with that. But sometimes it's just hard to determine what is the most important point of a story, so I prefer to say that the climax is the point in the story where there's a change, for better or worse, in the protagonist's life. During the falling action, the conflict is resolved, and we see the protagonist either winning or losing against the antagonist. And finally, the resolution is simply the final situation, or denouement. Categories of conflict and conflicts go together, and conflicts were discussed in the previous video, so I'm not going to go over the types of conflict today, but I do want to point out the relationship between category of conflict and conflict. Man versus man and man versus nature are external conflicts, because then the protagonist is dealing with an outside force, and the only conflict that is internal is man versus himself, because then the character is dealing with struggles within himself, within his own mind. Tone is the attitude or emotional state of mind of the author towards the subject, and it can greatly influence the perception that the reader has towards the subject discussed in the story. The last analysis element, the theme, is, according to me, the most important of all. The theme is the message or moral or main idea behind the story. Finding the theme or being aware of it is very rewarding. It gives the reader insight on the reasons why the author wrote that story, and it often leads to a better, more refined comprehension of the issue discussed. Now that you know how to use these elements of analysis, you should be able to apply the concepts to an analysis of your own. That's it. See you in class.